In this video, we're going to have a graph of f of x, and then we have to find some information given only this graph. So the first thing they want to know is f of 0. So this is function f, so this is a graph of function f. So I can plug in 0 for x and see what's happening at that point. So when x is 0, y is 3. So f of 0 would be 3. The next one says f of x equals 0. So that's saying when y equals 0, what is x? So when y is 0, we want to know where x is. So that's about 1.5, 0, because it's halfway between 1 and 2. So x is 1.5 when y is 0. The next part wants to know about f inverse of 0. So all we have here is the graph of f of x. But remember, we can find f inverse by flipping the ordered pair. So 0, 3 becomes 3, 0. Let me pick a different color here. So 3, 0. And 1.50 becomes 0, 1.5. And now this is the graph of f inverse of x. So that was 0, 1.5. So when the input is 0, so x is 0, the output was 1.5. And then we want to know when y is 0 on the inverse graph, what's x? Well, that was over here. Y was 0, so f of x was 0. What is x? X was 3. So we can see what's happening here with these functions and their inverses is the domain for function f becomes the range of its inverse. And the range of function f becomes the domain of the inverse. So they flip-flop. So f of x, it could have a domain and a range, and f inverse of x, its domain is that range, and its range is that domain. They flip-flop because all of these ordered pairs are flip-flopping. The x's become the y's, and the y's become the x's. All right, go ahead and try the example on the right. So again, this is a graph of our f of x function. First thing we want to know is f of negative 2. So x is positive 2. X is 2, so on the x-axis, we go to 2 and we find this point. So this is the point 2, negative 3. So when we plug in 2, we get out negative 3 for y. Part B wants to know when y equals negative 1, what's x? Right, so f of x is the same thing as y. So on the y-axis, we go down to negative 1. We figure out what's going on there, and that is the point 1, negative 1. So when we plug in negative 1 for y, x is positive 1. Now we want to know about the inverse function. So let's go ahead and flip those ordered pairs, and this is going to become negative 1, 1. Oops, let me use a different color for the inverse. And positive 2, negative 3 becomes negative 3, positive 2. Right, so this is negative 1, 1, and negative 3, positive 2. And that is f inverse of x. So f inverse of x, negative 3, is saying when x is negative 3 on our function, so negative 3, what is y? Y is positive 2. And when f inverse equals 1, what is x? So remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So this is saying when y equals 1, what is x? So on the y-axis, we go up to 1. Our x value was negative 1. So y was 1, x is negative 1. So again, the domain and range just flip-flopped from function f to f inverse of x.